We are live. There's little Jacob Davis. Close up of Mr. Jacob Davis.
I was it.
Huh? Jacob, there you are. Look at Jacob. Look at Jacob Davis. Is this your bear? What's his name? What's your bear's name? Who's this?
Jacob Davis.
Who's this? Who's this? He said he was Jacob Davis. What do you think, Gary? Casting director should be calling him.
Yeah, they should. That audition he had.
That a casting call?
Yeah.
He did good, didn't
Yeah, he did what they told him without any help,
he? That's right. That's right. You were there, Karen. You saw that. Yeah, but he should still be in their database for future projects.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, casting calls come around. I'm taking a little. I'm pimping him, right, Gary? We have another hot show lined up tonight. Jacob Davis, where are you going tomorrow? You going bye Kemah? Bye Galveston? Okay, Mom, get him to say something.
Jacob.
Who's this?
Jacob, can you say hi? Who am I?
Jacob Davis.
Who's this?
Grandma Davis.
Grandpa Davis.
No, Grandma Davis.
Oh, Grandma Davis.
All right,
Who's this?
who are you going with tomorrow, Jacob? Where are you going to stay tonight?
Grandma and Grandpa's house.
Okay. Jacob, what do you go to the gas station for?
Me, Grandma needs my gas.
There we go.
Little fella.
What's your bear's name?
Yeah, what is your bear's name?
You going to say what his name is? Is his name Buddy?
Is that Buddy?
No.
No.
What's his name today then?
What's his name?
He's being shy.
That's unusual for the little fella. All right, go on. Good job, little fella. We'll keep you coming. All righty, folks, and we are live from Austin, Texas. This is 1 August, year of our Lord 2011, and I've got an update. Next week, next Tuesday, there's a big meeting down here. Have you heard about this?
There's a meeting, yeah.
About the future of Access TV in Austin. So I think I might either come down or watch over. They're going to broadcast it live on TV and the webcast.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Gary? It'd be a shame to see this place close its doors, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, for Austin to lose this type of media, that's open to the public, I mean, I think Austin probably has the best independent
They do.
TV studio in the country.
They do. As far as access television, it is the best. I mean, most access stations across America, they're like Akron, Ohio, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a little two-office thing, and people just submit tapes to play. That's all there is to it. There's over 1,100 access TV stations across America, and that's how most of them are. Here in Austin, we're sitting down here in nice studios, taking live viewer calls. I mean, that's just not that. It is the premier access facility in America. Now, they're saying up until now, folks, the claim was that no tax dollars have ever funded access television. It was paid for by 35 cents on the cable bill. So if people didn't want it, they could get another cable network. At 35 cents for every subscriber paid for access television. Now, under this new contract, I don't know for sure. I guess I'll be finding out. There might be taxes involved to pay for it. So we'll see. Plus, the contract, according to what I've heard, is the contract calls for less money than what they've been getting. So there could be, the potential is there could be cuts, or they could, eventually this place could just go away. But I'm hoping not. I want to just say what a privilege this is to do this. See, Mr. Johnson, I consider myself a star without the money.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I've said this on television like this, but I consider myself a star. 10 years of commercial radio. I mean, my resume extends far more than just Access TV.
Mm-hmm.
I was a nationally syndicated radio host on the Liberty Works radio network. You probably remember that.
Yes.
That was satellite, a couple dozen AM, FM stations, shortwave, the whole, plus all of my acting gigs.
Yes.
Put all that together, and I think that's quite an impressive package. So, but the point is, this is where it all started for me, right here in this facility. If it wasn't for this facility, I would not have done commercial radio, nor probably would I've ever gotten into acting.
Right.
So I figure that over the years, that since I've been doing this for almost half my life, I've been doing radio and television for almost half my life, and I'm 51 years old. And I figure, basically, I've had my share of access television. I mean, I've gotten my share out of it, gotten my worth out of it. But I do want to see it be preserved for people in the future to have the same type of opportunities that I've had. Now, when you'll probably get it, you would probably disagree if tax dollars come into play. Is that true, or?
Well, I don't want tax dollars coming into play.
You don't want tax. Okay. Well, see, that it could be. I don't. We'll find out. Like I say, next Tuesday, folks. There's a meeting down here. I just talked to Maria. 8 o'clock. I think it's 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, down here at the Channel Austin facilities, and they're going to be talking about the future of this place. And like I say, if it goes away, I figure I've had more than my share of exposure for any one lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I want it to go away. I want to keep doing these shows, but I hope that city leaders see the value of this place, and I think my life well represents it as to the value of this place.
Right.
So we'll see. So next Monday we'll have that. We'll do we'll have a little bit more information next Monday, and then of course the deal on Tuesday, the meeting on Tuesday. Let's try this call real quick. Welcome. You're on Worldwide.
Hey, Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to tell you, Gary Johnson remembers years ago when we went down and talked about access stations back when Jackie Goodwin and Raul Alvarez and Betty Dunkerley were down there. But basically, the change has been in the federal and state law. And if people want to log on to speakupaustin.com, it's the city website. There's been, it's been going on for over a year. People have been talking about this on the City of Austin website.
CityofAustin.com?
It's Speak Up Austin.
SpeakUpAustin.com.
Yeah. But anyway, basically what happened was the federal law didn't mirror the state law. So you're correct in the fact that this programming was sponsored by the cable bill. But what happened was the capital expenses, in other words, the building and all those things, the federal law and the state law didn't match up, to pay the people that actually work there. But basically, since PAC, it's my understanding, has renewed their contract, and we're good for another year. And, that's channelaustin.org, the PACT, PAC. But the same people are going to be running this programming for the year, but the city will have to kick in money. And from what I've heard, all of this is a done deal and it's going to be done. It's just that.
Is it good? Do you know if it's going to be less money in the contract?
Basically, I think everything's going to pretty much stay, fairly similar to what it has been. I'm not sure if they're going to try to make up some of the expenses, like in becoming a producer. Like if you go down there to what the money that you have to spend to pay. Of course, PAC actually has scholarships, I believe, where they'll help you become a producer if you don't have the money. There's ways around that too. But I think there's a lot of different discussions. I know when Stephen Ray and different people were talking about it, they were talking about maybe seeing if there was any way that they could do like a telethon, like PBS or something. But the bottom line is, it's my understanding that's everything is good for the next year. It is in the city budget. PAC has already had their contract renewed unless something's happened. But, I mean, this meeting is kind of just, I guess, to fill everybody in. But that Speak Up Austin is a city website, and they've been talking about this for a year. And this basically, the bottom line is the federal and state laws didn't mirror one another, where previously they did. And so now with the state and federal law not mirroring each other, there wasn't any way to collect the revenue, through the laws not matching up. But that's kind of just wanted to tell you that.
Right there it is. Speak Up Austin.
Yeah.
Thank you. I guess.
Frontline Texas. 7
Yeah,
p.m., 16 Wednesday.
When is it?
7 p.m., Channel 16 Wednesday.
Wednesday night, 7 p.m., Channel 16.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Morris.
So that's pretty much the situation with Access Facility down here. Now, the next thing I want to discuss here briefly, then we're going to have Mike Hansen come in here. He's got an issue that the media is involved in, what would you call it? Just blatant misinformation, changing of history, the whole 9 yards. Now, obviously, we've had this. I want to say for the record first that there are some people, Gary, and you've probably heard some of this. There are some people, a few million probably across America, that say that there is no budget deficit for one of two reasons. Number one, these are basis for the budget. Federal Reserve notes. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at this one, this has a 1 on it. Mm-hmm. This is a piece of paper that has a 1 on it.
There's a 1 on it.
Okay. This is a piece of paper that has a 5 on it. This is a piece of paper that has a 20
It's
on it.
got a 20 on it.
Yeah. Now, but
It's magic.
But the bottom line is, folks, these are just pieces of paper.
That's right.
Backed by faith. Printed, by the way, by the Federal Reserve, not by us, but by the Federal Reserve Bank. Private.
Yeah.
Private.
I think Ludwig von Mises said that only in this system could you take something valuable, a piece of paper, and turn it into something worthless.
Well, old-time people, people that have been around on the planet Earth probably remember the days of the gold and silver certificates, where the money was actually backed by something, and you could go to a bank and redeem it for, a
$1 worth of gold.
$1 worth of gold or $5 worth of. This is backed by nothing. This is essentially just paper with money on it or with numbers on it. So some people contain that since this isn't really money to begin with, there can't really be a deficit.
Yeah, and it's worse than that because not only do they just print up these pieces of paper, but the money we have is loaned, so there's interest on it.
Interest on,
There's
yeah.
that debt.
That's right.
That's what the debt is. They just create that out of thin air.
It's called a debt usury money system.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Okay, now, so that's one reason. Number two reason is, and Gary, you probably have heard of this. Have you heard of CAFR's Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports?
I have.
Okay. Many people believe that the government has a lot more resources than what they're letting us, than they're telling us about through these comprehensive annual financial reports. So,
Well, they're kind of telling us about it. If you read the report, it's not really a secret.
yeah, it's not real.
It's just-
They do have the and that being said, let's go ahead and just play the budget gimmickry that they're doing right now, just briefly. I normally stay outside the box,
Yeah.
but we'll stay in the box for this one for a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, now first off, if it was up to me, if I was president of the United States, we'd have a budget surplus. Abolish the Department of Education, abolish the DEA, abolish the FCC. I mean, you just start abolishing these agencies, and eventually, more notes come in than are going out.
Mm-hmm.
But
if you were going out,
yeah,
yeah.
fewer go. Yeah. So,
Less spending.
but the big news has been this past couple of weeks about this so-called raising the debt ceiling and this budget the default and the debt that's supposedly piling up. What's your thoughts on the whole thing? Is it what do you
Well,
think?
I think it's just. First of all, I think that what we've been hearing for the past few weeks has been partisan politics. It's just both the Democrats and the Republicans are trying to play games to set up some sort of situation they can blame on the other party. So that's what really is going on. They're not trying to solve the problem. There is no plan to pay off the debt, you notice. There is no long-term plan for any of this. They just want to figure out a way to blame the other side for political gamesmanship. Right? So supposedly what we're arguing about is raising the debt ceiling. So the debt ceiling was set, and it actually was set shortly after the Federal Reserve was created, and they just keep raising it, I don't know, every few years or every year or so. So the first question is, why do we have a debt ceiling?
Good question.
And I mean, it seemed like, well, that was a promise, so that because they wanted to borrow more money, and the first time they set the debt ceiling, they said, well, we're going to have a debt ceiling, but we promise we won't borrow any more money. Okay, well, once they broke that promise, the second time they raised the debt ceiling, we should have realized the whole thing was a scam, because what they've been arguing about right now is whether or not to raise the debt ceiling again. Well, what's the point of having a debt ceiling, which is a promise to ourselves that we're not going to borrow any more money, if we're going to keep raising the debt ceiling? The analogy I like to use, and I think you'll understand this, Jeff, is what if you went someplace to gamble? You know, you usually, I understand the correct way to do this is you set aside some money and say, this is my gambling money, and if I lose all that money, that's fine. We'll enjoy the rest of the vacation. We'll go to the swimming pool or whatever, but we're not going to gamble any more money. We set the ceiling, and that's it. But you go someplace, and you bet all the money that you're supposed to bet in your little budget, your little whatever, and then you say, oh, well, let's raise the debt ceiling. That defeats the whole purpose of the ceiling. And that's what they're talking about right now, is raising the debt ceiling.
Well, what do you think's gonna? Is America heading the way of Rome?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
And you said that yourself too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's no doubt. Just look at what's happening. I mean, that right there, tells you that we're on the way, like Rome.
Yeah. It's so bad is that what they're talking about is to raise the debt ceiling in order to borrow some more money in order to pay the interest on the debt. It's not to borrow some more money to do something useful. The interest on the debt is so bad, they say, borrow more money for it. So it's really a hopeless situation.
Yeah.
So I think we are going to default. We may not default right now, but I think sooner or later we're going to default.
The government will just stop paying
Somebody.
somebody. Yeah.
Well, there's actually two ways. One is the default. The other is they just print more of this money. More, just put bigger numbers on the bills.
There you go.
But that means that the money that you have is losing purchasing power. So if there's twice as many dollars out there, your dollar has half as much purchasing power, and that's what's going to happen, I think.
Either the default
Hyperinflation.
or the money system collapse.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have people everyone will be needing wheelbarrows
Yes.
because hyperinflation. I mean, we're not special. If we do the wrong things, we're going to get the results of the countries that did
Exactly.
those things.
Yeah.
We're no different.
And it has happened in other countries.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh. And Germany, when
Yeah.
they actually had wheelbarrows,
Actually had
get a
wheelbarrows.
loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Well, they estimate, and I called for this way back in 1990. If you're playing in the budget gimmickry, they estimate that you could save $1 trillion right now by just sending all the troops home from Afghanistan, sending them all home from Iraq, closing all these damn bases. They got bases
Yeah.
in Germany and
Yeah.
Korea and 100 and some different countries. If you just closed all that down, brought all the military firepower back to the continent of the United States, that would save them $1 trillion a year, they're saying.
Yep.
Yeah. So is that what you meant when you talk about Rome, that we're heading toward Rome because we're an empire? Is that?
Well, or Greece. I mean, like Gary said, I mean, this is America has been the most powerful country in the history of planet Earth up to this point. I mean, if you believe the history.
Yeah.
And Rome lasted 500 years,
Yeah. Somewhere.
and America has been around 230 some years.
Okay.
So yeah, it's possible that it could go the way of Rome. And
For the same reasons.
For the same reasons, debt usury money,
Yeah.
foreign military intervention all over the world.
Yeah.
It could go the way of Rome.
But we could turn it around.
We could
We could bring the troops home. For
bring
starters.
the troops home. There's a lot of. Like I say, I think. Now this is kind of a mixed sword, but the U.S. government spends $75 billion a year on the war on drugs. Now what their justification is, they recoup a lot of that money back through theft, through asset forfeiture statutes, and the locals.
Of course, that does not help the economy any, but
And the locals and the state government, they make big money off the war on drugs. They catch somebody with a
so
bag.
it transfers all this wealth from the private sector to the public sector.
Yes, that's what it's
From
doing.
the honest people to the crooks.
Yeah, so that's by the way, the war on drugs is just really getting serious now, and we've been talking about it for years here, and really getting serious. They're talking about a lot of crime that's coming up, not just in Mexico, but up through here now. And so the war on drugs is causing considerable damage.
Well, it's just like alcohol prohibition. It's just the gangsters are taking over, and it's corrupting the whole system.
Well, but if they wanted to cut it, they get rid of it. That would save $75 billion on the federal side. Plus, you abolish all these drug courts and all this bullshit that they have in place. So you could save a substantial amount of money there. So there's a lot of things that, like I say, I think the FCC should be abolished. What does the FCC do? They protect
Takes people off the air.
the big corporate monopolies.
Yes.
They're the only ones that can have access to the airwaves.
That's right.
Because it costs so much just to get the license to broadcast. So I mean, there's a lot of things that real cutting could do. Would you agree with a lot of this, Gary?
Oh yeah. Those agencies, like you mentioned, it wouldn't hurt at all for them to disappear.
Yeah.
There's so much duplication in a lot of, especially in law enforcement. So much duplication, and it's just, well, it needs to be changed. But, you know, the answer to that is, how do you do it? That's the problem. You got
Well,
so
we
many.
could wait. If the system collapses all by itself, it'll fix itself.
You got so many people, you know, that are involved in it now.
I know.
Yeah, that's
that,
right.
that, whew,
Yeah.
wow, it's.
Making their living off.
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah, and they know, you know, they, you know, creates a loyalty to it, so they're.
Yeah.
Just think of all the money the local, ending the drug war. I don't know. I would guess that the locals in the states, they probably make more money on the drug war than they're spending.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, if somebody gets caught with a bag of weed, I mean, he's looking at jail time, and then years of probation where you got to pay a couple $100 a month, fines,
Right,
thousands of
right.
dollars a fine. So they're making big money off it. And speaking of the drug war, I'm seeing more and more optimistic things. KXAN, I forget when it was I was watching them, but the local NBC affiliate here in Austin, Texas, they did there was a new study, and there's been like 3,000 people killed in Juarez just this year due to the war on drugs, and the way they would cover that a year or two ago, or years back, is they would say drug related violence is killing all these people. Drug related violence, if you really think about that, that's just a bunch of bullshit. That's implying that drugs are causing all this death and mayhem, are causing the violence. And I just get so frustrated every time, whether it's CNN or whatever. But KXAN, they listed this study of all these thousands of people that got killed, that have been killed in Mexico due to the war on drugs. And they put up on the screen, they put drug war carnage. Drug war carnage. Much better than drug-related violence.
Right.
Much better. So I'm seeing public opinion changing on this drug war. It better too, because like I say, these they're really getting solidly here in America now with this stuff.
I listened to KLBJ this morning. I believe they said something like 45,000 people had been killed in Mexico over I forgot how many years, but short period of time.
Yeah.
And I saw some more of that video. They arrested another mafia or another drug cartel head, and he had a regular jeans and regular clothes. He had a one of those bulletproof vests on, but he just looked like a regular guy. And then standing behind him is the Mexican police. And they got their faces, you can only see like this much. The rest of it's just a big black ski mask and black helmets and
They're hiding something.
oh man, it's terrible. And you got to know that the Mexican police are down there killing people.
Oh yeah.
For the drug lords, yeah.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, so it's just really But I'm saying, but if you want to get down to cutting the budget would be easy for a libertarian to do. You probably say just do away with the whole government, right?
And then what do we do the second day?
But so you are predicting where America's going to go the way of Rome, or you're not quite going that far yet?
Oh yeah, eventually it will. I'm not saying it's going to be tomorrow or whatever, but we're doing everything that leads to that. Eventually, we can, with our accounting methods and everything, we can play around and make it last longer. But you're going to have to pay the piper someday. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, these other countries like Greece, they're already see. It's not going to happen suddenly. It's going to happen exponentially. So it's going to happen kind of faster and faster. In other words, it's not going to go suddenly like this. It's going to go like this, but the decline is going to accelerate as it goes down. So it'll get worse faster as it goes worse. It's going to be exponential.
So that's it, folks. That's see, I'm real optimistic about my future, though. So Even if the system collapses, I believe I'm going to be fine. Well, actually not, because if the system totally collapsed, I wouldn't survive because I couldn't get the medicines that I need, stuff like that. So
Or food. That's
Or food,
Really,
yeah.
that's the main.
Yeah, see, you look like countries like Argentina, so they close the banks, they close the grocery stores for a while. I mean, it happens, so you got to get ready.
Okay, folks. Now, if you're watching, if you'd like to call in, watching on Austin Time Warner Cable or Grande Communications Cable TV Channel 16 here in Austin, Texas, 477-2288. If you're watching or listening over the internet on channelaustin.org, 512-477-2288, 512-477-2288. Talk about your acting. Let's get your, and then we'll get to your show.
Well, this or last week rather has been kind of slow.
Yeah.
Got some irons in the fire, but they hadn't materialized yet. Hopefully within this month later, but just kind of a slow week.
But if you'd like to check out Gary Teague's impressive resume, you have a good resume yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I try to.
He works
keep
hard
improving.
at it, Gary. He's really hard. Right there it is, imdb.com. And then when you get to that, just search Gary Teague.
Yeah, and that'll pull it right up on the IMDb.
And your credits are up there with a lot of the
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of the main actors somehow.
yeah.
Do you think that's IMDb doing that, or is that the project itself doing that?
I honestly don't know, Jeff.
In Bernie, he's listed Jack Black, Matthew McConaughey, Shirley MacLaine, Gary Teague.
I can't complain.
So right there it is, imdb.com. Search Gary Teague. Mr. Gary Johnson doing a great radio show on the Rule of Law Radio Network. You said he had a good show last night.
Yeah, he did. I really enjoyed that with Tex Mars.
Yeah, we had Tex Mars on the show, and we talked about his book, and we also talked about his battle with the Internal Revenue Service,
Yeah.
about 501c3s and how he fought that and won, in the sense that they said, okay, you don't owe any money. After they had audited him for 3 years, he wrote a book about Hillary Clinton, and then suddenly they wanted to audit him. This is the 1990s. So
Big Sister is watching.
yes,
Yeah. Man, he won it, huh?
he got they tried all sorts of things. He challenged them in court. He filed all sorts of part of the problem was that he pinned them down to say, well, what is I'm doing wrong? And they gave him all these vague answers, and when they really couldn't tell him what he was doing wrong, they had to kind of back down, and they eventually agreed out of court just before the trial was going to begin. Okay, you haven't done anything wrong. You don't owe any money. They gave him his 501c3 status back, and then he gave it up. But he wanted it back just to prove that he hadn't done anything wrong.
Yeah. And your show is Sunday nights, Central Time, 8 to 10 p.m.
Yes.
8 p.m. Ruleoflawradio.com on Sunday nights. Now, also, if you're in Central Texas, you can listen to Gary's show on 90.1 FM.
Yes.
Okay. So cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and run our video. We got our video set up, Mike?
We can't get it right at all.
It's not working? Okay, Jeff, then go ahead and grab one of those
Oh, are we doing that first?
yeah, we'll do that first, then we'll have you up here.
Well, you're gonna have to get it ready first.
Just,
I have my stuff ready.
No, I mean,
okay. Well, by the way, folks, I want to mention while I've got a minute here that if you really enjoy watching the TV version, I encourage you to check us out on Facebook.
Oh, let me say something very quickly. If you go to Tex Mars' website right now, powerofprophecy.com, I don't know if they can pull it up right now. Your show is on the home page. I've got a link. It says watch Tex on the Jeff Davis
Nice.
show.
You hear that, Mike? Thank you, Tex Mars. It's on his.
That's right. It's near the top of the page.
I'll check that out.
it's,
What is it? Powerofprophecy.com?
Yeah.
Nice. That's good. That's always good to hear. Yeah. But what I was going to say, folks, is Facebook. The Jeff Davis show that I manage for this show, for the Facebook, it's really amazing to me, Gary, that there's just not as much. These American police and sheriff people, they're killing people on a regular basis. I just posted something on Facebook. They beat a homeless man to death. Did you see that?
No.
I forget where it was, but and then they kill people on these drug raids. It's amazing how many Americans are being killed by American law enforcement now. I've been posting them up on Facebook, different stuff. Right there it is, Power of Prophecy. Where's it at, Gary?
You just scroll down.
Just scroll down.
A little bit fun, and it's right there. I think. Right. It says click here. There it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
There it is.
All right.
And it's your YouTube video.
That is great. Hot zone alert, huh?
Computer's so slow, it's not gonna let you play a video tonight, Jeff.
Okay.
Okay,
But
well,
anyway,
well,
if you had better internet connection, you could see it.
Go ahead and Jeff, grab one of those. Okay, and then we're going to play this, and then we'll just for 5 minutes or so. Right there it is. There we are with text. That's perfect. That's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me that.
it's on the
That's
home
kind
page
of
there.
yeah. That's great. And then we'll be back with Mike Hansen. So keep it right here. Mike's got something he wants. He's got a little beef with the media.
Organizations that I'm going to be talking about here briefly. Now, their basic goals, of course, were to eliminate nationalities, the abolishment of the U.S. Constitution, which they did in 1933 with the War and Emergency Powers Act. We're going to be getting to that a little bit later. Religions, we're going to be talking about that quite intensely over the next hour. Organized religion and its role in this. Education, free public education for children starting at an early age will be allowed, will be trained in the fundamentals of obeying the state, just like the churches teach you now. Mobility, and we're seeing this now with high-speed rail and other mechanisms. The mass transit will be the basic mode of travel, having one's papers in order. Licenses, registration, road use fees, display of proper identification will be a necessity before an individual will be allowed to travel. We're already seeing that much to the disliking of many. Now, basically, the whole gist of Adam Weishaupt's dreams was to control the world's people and their resources. And this is now some 220 years later, and I believe they're on the very threshold of doing that. I want to mention some secret societies that the Illuminati has infiltrated over the last couple hundred years and are now diligently working for the quest of the global slave elite. First off is the P2 Lodge in Europe, the Knights of Malta, the Order of the Jesuits, which is a Catholic order, high-level Freemasonry, the Skull and Bone Society, of which the Bushes, George and George Jr. are both members of the Skull and Bone Society, and Eastern Star, which is the woman's side of Freemasonry. Some of the semi-secret meeting groups that they formulated, basically what they are is just little meeting houses for them to go and meet and plot and decide what they're going to do with this country and that country. It includes one of the top groups is the Committee of 300, the Club of Rome, the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, and there's actually several more here. But I can see the Aspen Institute, the Bohemian Grove, regional federations such as NATO, international labor unions, and on the world basis, of course, in the intelligence arena, you have the CIA, you have the Interpol, the mafia, organized crime industry, British intelligence, the KGB, and of course the CIA. That's the intelligence network on a global basis. Now, now as far as those are semi-secret front groups that the enemy has established. Now, on a public scale, the ones that we hear about regularly in the media, the ones that are providing peace and doing good for the world, of course, is the United Nations, the World Trade Organization. We hear about that pretty frequently now. The World Council of Churches, which is another one of their systems of that's actually spiritual control. NATO, as I mentioned, the World Health Organization, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the World Wildlife Fund. Basically, on all spheres now, they've got something working in their best interest, either environmentally, politically, spiritually, or whatever. Now, some of the American front groups, and I want to just mention this, basically includes virtually anything of any significance. They've either created and financed or have infiltrated. That includes both the major political parties. If you look at your Bill Clinton is a member of the CFR, Newt Gingrich is a member of the CFR. What you got here is the old order out of chaos, where they appear to be providing on the surface some differences, but in fact there is no difference. The common objectives are globalism and bigger government. And that includes, folks, even the Libertarian Party, I believe, has been infiltrated. So it's a big system here that we're talking about. Now, of course, the major media is part of their handmaiden, and we're going to be talking about that. National Public Radio, the American Civil Liberties Union, the National Pro-Life Groups, the NRA, the National Council of Churches, the Nature Conservancy. Most environmental groups, by the way, are funded by the same corporate interest that they, on the surface, appear to be fighting. So I think that's kind of an interesting little twist when you look at that particular situation. Different voters groups that we hear about, so-called human rights groups. Now the National Organization for Women, different trade organizations, as I mentioned. All major denominations of religions. Now keep in mind, folks, that nowhere in the Bible is Catholic mentioned, or Episcopalian, or Pentecostal, or Protestant, or Baptist, or none of this. So you have to wonder next, and where did all this confusion come from?
5 years or something? Or
Now
Yeah.
where?
Huh? How long was it?
Of where?
You've been doing
How many
stuff.
years was she doing it?
I was like
Oh,
22
you're up, Jeff.
shows. 22
You're
years.
up, Jeff.
Yeah, we're live, folks. Back and live. Okay, now we're going to let's get close-ups of these pictures. first.
Well, you have to wait until we explain the story,
okay,
Jeff.
okay, go ahead. Now tell us the story.
Well,
Mike Hansen, by the way.
hello, folks. Lately, I've been seeing mainly I've just been watching, I've seen KI, and I've called and complained that what the police union's done here is that they're grandstanding about this August 1st, 1966 shooting. The shooting that happened 45 years ago here in Austin,
Oh,
Texas.
it was today?
It's today's anniversary. And the police...
Charles Whitman at the UT Tower.
Well, I'm not going to get into why or...
No, I'm just saying.
Some people say he had a brain tumor. Some people say he had this and that. That's not why I'm here. I have another spin on what the police union is grandstanding and trying to make just, I'm not saying the cops that were involved are not heroes, but there were other heroes that day, including the civilians that came up there with their guns to fight this guy, to keep him down until the police could get to him. There was also a civilian that went with the police up in the tower. Matter of fact, he made the first shot and his gun misfired. So, and also the ambulance drivers. My dad was an ambulance driver. He saved just countless numbers of people that day. His picture was in the paper all around the country. Do you think they're going to name, the police union's going to name a building after my dad? And it just upsets a lot of us that are still around to remember.
But by the way, here's another.
That's when he was in the Navy. My dad, he actually, if you look at this and you know my brother, he's a police officer for 20 years. This looks exactly like my brother, don't it?
Yeah,
it really does. So he favors.
So
my brother.
he was a hero during that incident too. Then.
Well, my point of this whole thing is the police union out here is grandstanding about their 3 cops in naming a building after a City of Austin building after these 3 cops, which they were heroes. But my point is they forgot about all the other heroes that day. They didn't even mention them on the news. The civilians that went up there with their rifles and their guns to try to subdue this guy, Ramirez, what was his name? The one that became and
then Crump was a civilian, I think.
Mr. Martinez, which became a Texas Ranger later, put in his book, if it wouldn't have been for the civilians coming up there with their rifles and keeping this guy pinned down, they would have never got him. Can you imagine that today, Gary? Civilians coming up with their rifles to help the police. You know, it's just a sign of a time. And Alan Crump, he was a civilian.
Alan Crum.
He was a civilian, and that most of that's civilians shooting at the building, keeping him down. And that's some actual footage of that day, and of August 1st, 1966. But the 3 cops were Jerry Day, Houston McCoy, and Mr. Martinez. And McCoy, I think, actually shot him first, and Mr. Martinez shot him in the head and ended it. But Alan Crum he shot first, but his gun misfired. So he was actually a hero too. But where's the recognition for him? The civilians and all the other people that were heroes that day, they just are grandstanding on the news. Every newscast is how these
loves the police,
how the cops did this and did that. I'm not saying they didn't, but my whole point is I want to see the police union. They're probably having the ceremony tonight as we speak. I'd like to see them give credit to where credit's due also on some of these civilians and the ambulance drivers that were out there. And you got to remember, back then, Jeff, there was no EMS like you're thinking of today. They just put it in the casualties in the they had to run and get them, and then they put them in the back of this a station wagon and ran them straight to Brackenridge Hospital. There was no, helping them along the way. They were just ambulance drivers back then. It was not the same thing as EMS. So that's why sometimes the EMS gets offended when you say ambulance drivers. Oh, no, we're EMS, because they do work on the people as you're going to the hospital now.
So the bottom line is
the news and the police unions are changing history on y'all folks as we speak. They are changing history, and I didn't like it. And I tried to call KLBJ, and the guy got real furious with me, the screener, saying, the civilians shouldn't have went down there with their rifles and everything like that. He's thinking of what he's probably a young fella, about 22 years old. He's thinking what would happen today if people went down there with their rifles. It'd probably be a bloodbath if people went down there because the police would actually shoot the civilians probably now if you went down there with your guns now, like what happened on the UT a couple of years ago. What would happen if everybody ran down there with rifles this time?
Yeah.
They got tanks now. I seen them driving tanks through the streets.
What's going on in Arlington?
Arlington. What's that?
You said they're using they're using helicopters or something.
They're using unmanned drones to fly around. If you could
Unmanned
go to Mike
drones.
Hansen Archives on YouTube and see that. And
unmanned drones.
They might be using it for some good purposes now, but in the future they might just fly over your property and see that your tag's out or something. Jeff.
Oh yeah.
That's what abuses can.
I don't think. Well, what's the good that they're supposedly using them for? Drug war.
I'm just saying that's what they're saying. They're saying that we're using this is eye in the sky and everything. Matter of fact, they're putting all these cameras on Runbird now.
Yeah,
did you see that on the news?
Yeah.
But it comes down to this: if you want to give your liberty up for security, that's what's happening. If you want to give your liberty up for security, don't you agree, Gary?
So what do you think of? Go ahead.
I was going to ask Anthony, how's your challenge of the police, the county?
Your complaint
coming on.
Well, I'd like to get into that in a couple weeks. It's in a stalemate right now. I did, after many years, after 2 years, I hired a lawyer, the Spanish lawyer. So hopefully he's trying to work it out, because you have to realize I have a business to run. Mm-hmm. I've been to trial at least 25 times already over this stop sign, and the lawyer said he's never seen anything like it. He said that the county is actually trying to make an example out of me, and they are pushing it toward trial. Is what he said. They will not make a deal. They will not drop it. They will not do anything other than to take me in front of a jury and try to force the issue. They are mad as hell. He said, I don't know what you've done to these people, Mike, but he said he's never seen anything like it in his career. So at this point, I've turned it over to an attorney to see what he can do about it, and because I'm not giving up. It's just that I've spent so much time in the last 2 years in court, and I'm having to drive 100 miles to do it every time. So I've spent thousands and thousands. So,
folks, if you'd like to call in, I saw we just had a call that dropped off.
But that's all I had to say. I think it's very.
What about BohemianGroveExposed.com?
We just got through with the Bohemia Grove.
Mm-hmm.
We just got through. I was actually on some radio shows. I was on Gary's radio show. I was on a radio
George
show
Butler
out of
show?
California.
Joyce who?
George Butler show
as well.
And I got a call from Alex Jones. He wants me to come on about my book.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
you were on a show in California. What were they? Were they? It was in the area.
The what now?
You were on the show in California.
Yeah,
it was
close to the area.
It was close to the area.
Yeah,
what were their interest?
What
are they?
It was a morning talk show.
But what did they ask you?
I think they were mainly making fun of me.
They were making fun of
but
you.
But anything to get a plug for my website, I'll do it.
Hey, I think it's ridiculous. Whether you call it whether it's a conspiracy or that makes no difference. What matters is these are world leaders.
The point is,
Jeff, doing these things.
The point is, would you let somebody take care, babysit your baby, or walk your dog that's out here in the woods performing mock ceremonies, killing a baby in effigy, and dressing up in Ku Klux Klan robes and doing a weird ceremony? No, you might not, but guess what? These people are running your government.
That's right, world leaders.
And they're discussing things that affect you, like the economy, like y'all were discussing this last time. They probably were discussing all this about the debt ceiling, how they're going to get us in more debt, and your grandchildren will never be able to pay it off, folks, because they don't print out the interest. They don't print out. How in the world are we ever going to pay off these trillions and trillions of dollars? I think of my poor little grandchildren. How are they ever going to pay this off? They're not, because
No.
they don't print out enough money to, even if it was possible for us to pay it back, they don't print out enough money to
Right.
to pay it off.
Right, if
It's
you-
like a credit card. You never get it paid off.
Right. If
Yeah.
you have $1 trillion, that's the total money supply.
Yeah.
How do you pay off $1 trillion plus interest?
Yeah.
There's no money.
Nothing there. I think I would just give the bankers a IOU and say, "Here, we owe
There
you.
you go.
You know, here's $1 billion, $1 trillion. This little piece of paper is worth $1 trillion, and
you
here,
go.
go deposit it somewhere."
It's just like, Jeff, just put a bigger number on that piece of paper.
That's it. It's the craziest thing. Once you understand it, it's hard to understand. It took me forever to understand the Federal Reserve, and I still don't understand it. Probably as
That's
good
the
as
whole
y'all
idea.
do.
is, I know,
But I mean,
it's
the
supposed to be
main
confusing.
thing is, if you remember this, they're getting us in debt. They're printing out all this money, but they don't print out enough money for interest. So our kids are debt slaves forever. Our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, and all they're doing is sitting back and getting rich off of us.
And taking away more civil
And they're
liberties.
taking our freedoms away as we speak too, because they don't want us to get small. It amazes me how they let people have the internet.
Oh, it is me
You know,
too.
because people are starting to wake up. A lot of people on the internet about the Federal Reserve, and you know, Ron Paul and a whole bunch of them
Right.
are educating people.
Well, the biggest scam
But
is
I remember Jeff talking about it 22 years ago.
Yes.
The Federal Reserve
Yes.
didn't understand a damn thing he was talking about.
I
But-
was a guest on Mike's when he had River City Talk.
Yes.
I was a first-time guest on there, and
didn't understand a damn thing about what he was talking about.
And I said we got into talking about Waco, and I was going to go through my spiel about how the government massacred all these people, and Mike looked at me and says, "Wait a minute, didn't David Koresh say he was Jesus?"
I woke up a lot since then.
As if that makes it, even if he did say that.
Yeah, right, who cares?
Yeah, well, yeah. What difference does that make for people? All these people being murdered.
Let me plug that if anybody
Go ahead.
would like to send us an email, Jeff, you
And or donations.
well,
We take
can't ask
take
for money.
donations.
we can't talk about that. What we can talk about
Donations of material.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, like news articles and stuff like that. We still have the same P.O. Box, P.O. Box 19061, Austin, Texas 78760.
You know, 19061 is the same upside down.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the same upside down.
Well, you know that
It is.
We've had that post office box for 20 years, Joe.
Yeah, I remember we used to get a lot of mail in there.
Well, I'd like to get some more mail.
Yeah, well, the
We'd
internet.
like to read it on the show.
Yeah.
yeah,
okay.
yeah, that'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
Send your letters. We'll read them on the air.
But that's all I had about
Okay,
that.
let me just mention once again Gary's radio show coming up Sunday night, 8 p.m.
Going to talk with Judith McGeary of Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance.
Cool. And that's it, folks. Love you. We'll be back scheduled to be
God
back
bless.
here live next week. Bye.